What video game will always be nostalgic for you? Donkey Kong Country, the mineshaft levels. Man, probably spent an entire summer getting past those. James Bond GoldenEye on N64, Spyro, Year of the Dragon. I didn't even have a memory card when I played that. I would just leave the game on overnight and try to beat it in 2 or 3 days. Nostalgia. Loads of things get me going down memory lane nowadays. But, oh boy, the underwater level for Donkey Kong, aquatic ambience. I still occasionally play a 7-hour loop on YouTube while I go to sleep. Our files were proximity mines in the library. Our friend Brandon, think Eric Cartman, only so fat he fell through the floor of his mobile home, hated proxy mines because they required no skill and he grinded that game, beat that game on all settings. He could expert kill you with remote mines and timer mines. Didn't think it was fair that we, lesser skilled players, could use proxy mines to kill. Refused any game that was set to proxy mine. One game we were beating him. We got smart and decided that instead of Battle Royale, we needed to team up against him. He unplugged our controllers. This led to another form of the game, Task Hunt. Task Hunt. From the Deep Space Nine episode Captive Pursuit, one player is Task, others chase after Task. Winner is who kills Task the most time. Task wins if he has the most kills. When Brandon was Task we set to proxy mines because fuck you Task. Brandon was the only Task to win. This was going to be my answer. The OAT soundtrack is what's the most nostalgic to me, especially the theme to Saria's song. That will always take me back to 12-year-old me on the N64, without a worry in the world, back in the 90s, where life itself was much more simple. I feel the same way about the original Zelda game except that bit where you're better off skipping Labyrinth 5 to get to the ladder, than living to go finish Labyrinth 6 first. Labyrinth 5 has the fire enemies that split apart into 2 red keys when you hit them, which is very annoying, but they die to a single blow from the magical sword, which you can only get with 8 hearts, and you can't get 8 hearts without the ladder and the raft. Labyrinth 5 is not difficult at all, but it's way less annoying with the magical sword. As for A Link to the Past, the only dungeon that made me actually quit the game is that accursed dungeon in the forest where it's so easy to get lost inside. There were several points in Alt where I got the thing or finished the last objective and then had no idea where to go, so that was a little frustrating. It remains one of the only Zelda games that I own but I've never beaten. Right up there with Zelda 2. I also hated how Link could swing his sword in front of him and there was a slim window of a couple of pixels that his sword wouldn't reach, so it wouldn't block incoming missiles or enemies, etc. That felt so limited compared to other Zelda games. However, I feel like Link's Awakening was a perfect Zelda game. It's only the plot and story around the windfish and the island of Koholint that doesn't make any real sense. And of course, Ocarina of Time was phenomenal. This was the first real video game I played. I had a Pong set. I had the Atari 2600. I played Mario Brothers, but this game, you had to think and explore and buy things and talk to your friends about how to beat it. Luring that one guy away with the bait so you can enter the dungeon? That took me too long to figure out. There was no internet. You had to find a kid geekier than you were to learn that. I still love RPGs to this day because of that game. The Oregon Trail. It was the first video game I ever played back on the computer we had in my grade school's classroom. I remember rushing to finish quizzes and tests just to be the first to get my fix of the game since the teacher let us play if we finished early. I still sometimes play it on archive.org, along with the 1992 deluxe edition for nostalgia. Oh man, I remember visiting my friend's house as a wee lad and he showed me this game. When I saw the whole map size, I was blown away. It looked so massive and diverse. To this day, I am still mad that they didn't do another overworld like that game has. They kind of do it sometimes, but it never has this many secrets and paths to take like SMW had. The secret pipe that showed you Bowser's Valley in the second area of the game, literally just for you to have a sneak peek. That is genius. It's not only the game I played the most, it's also the reason I have my best friend. We were in the same class but we hated each other with every cell in our body. We fought every day. Then one day I hear him say he's going to play Skyrim after school and I said, "What, you play Skyrim?" After that we started talking a bit, realized God we are real similar and like the same stuff and became best friends. Fable is absolutely worth playing. I've played through it multiple times. Haven't done so in about 5 years or so, but I'd highly recommend it, especially if you get the lost chapters it on. Fable 2 and 3 not so much though, barely remember them to be honest. I don't think many people did either. Oh my god, this game will always hold a special place in my heart. Spent so much time in the Jow Gardens and then working my butt off to get grade A on all the levels. I just recently downloaded it to my Xbox to relive it all over again. Makes the kid in me so happy. The Sims 2. I've been a fan of the Sims franchise since I was very little and it was the first video game I ever played, at least that I remember. And I remember being very little and getting on my sister's laptop and either deleting her family, killing her Sims family, or treating the children so poorly that they got taken away or died. Good times. I remember having to send a money order in the mail and waiting 2 weeks for a 3-month membership. That game helped me escape life in 2009 when my best friend died. 2012 ended up being the year one got banned for botting, lost a lot of hard-earned shit because I was too occupied with needing to play while working and adjusting to a social life. Now I'm back at it again with OSRS, it's not the same but at the same time it is. Got my fiancé to even play it, just collect stuff and skills. It's adorable to see the flame in her eyes for the game I once held dear. I wish I had that spark still. River City Ransom. I remember the night that I first rented it, not long after its release in 1990. It was a Thursday night and I was in the 2nd grade. It was the first time my mother had ever made tacos. So after filling up on crunchy Ortega shells and old El Paso beef seasoning, which felt like something from the scorched depths of Tijuana itself to my Puritan palate, I plopped down in front of the TV, sat on the creaky wooden floor and had as it. I had selected the game because my parents had recently purchased a copy of West Side Story from one of those get 10 movies for 1 cent deals that were prevalent at the time and I'd fallen in love with the film's aesthetic and setting. The box art for River City Ransom reminded me a lot of the Rumble Under the Highway sequence, so I grabbed it up as my weekend's entertainment. To this day it remains one of my all-time favorite games and I'll never forget that night. Aside from the tacos and the game there really wasn't anything special about it, but I think it's special that I remember that feeling, especially among the countless others that I've entirely forgotten. I know I'll get downvoted but World of Warcraft, met a bunch of friends on there that turned into IRL friends. We played vanilla last summer together and the nostalgia was real. Total shame what happened to that company and game. Not getting downvoted. I miss WoW too, being over 10 years since I hung up my sword. Strangely, my favorite part of the game was just the geography. I upgraded to epic mounts late in the game because I just like to walk everywhere. I miss you, LT Chuck Nasty level 80 human rogue. After 40 years of gaming, I'm 44, too goddamn many to count, from adventure on Atari to getting platinum medals and all from software games, from Quake, Ev 1 and 2, Unreal, COD 1 and 2 Battlefield V, Battlefront 2 and soon Battlefield 2042, from Ultimate to EverQuest, WoW and then back to classic WoW with EQ2 and Jedi slaughtering in SWG for good measure. So many good nostalgic games: Adventure, Combat, Missile Command, Super Mario Bros., Zelda, Ninja Gaiden, Russian Attack, River City Ransom, Contra, Super Mario 2, Zelda 2, Metroid, Castlevania, Ghouls and Ghosts, Final Fantasy, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark. Like I could keep going but damn it would take forever. Atari, NES, Genesis, SNES, 3DO, N64, PS1, Xbox, PS2, GameCube, PS3, Wii, Xbox 360, Wii U, PS4, Switch, PS5 and gaming computer. 45 years old next year and I've been at it from the start. Hell of a run and too many memories and nostalgic moments to choose from. Now back to Niall and GTFO my yard. Red Dead Redemption. I never played video games much. When I was younger my older brother played them a lot. We were close but never really had similar lifestyles, we just had different interests. But late in the evenings he'd be playing video games and I'd want to sit down so I'd hang out with him and watch him play video games. I actually enjoyed just watching but never played much myself. He ended up dying in a car accident. It was rough. When going through his things we came across the gaming stuff, a computer and various PS consoles. Nobody in my family cared for them but I wanted to keep his gaming stuff despite my mediocre interest in actual gaming. It was just the way we spent time together and I knew he loved his games. I didn't actually touch much of it for a long time but one day it was raining out and I couldn't do much so I thought I should fire up some video games. I looked through his games. I had heard of RDR but never played it and thought that I should check it out. OMG, I fell in love. I've never played a game that I thought was so much fun. I played it so much, I finally finished it and RDR 2 was already out so I decided to go buy it. It was another rainy day. I just thought it was a good idea. I love RDR 2 and I've played through it already. I'm doing it again now. As I said, I'm not even much of a gamer but damn it, I wish I could talk with my brother about this game. I know he'd be so proud of me for my accomplishments in my own life and I really wish he was here. But damn it, I would love to play that game with him. TLDR, I discovered RDR and RDR 2 in my dead brother's stuff and wish I would have been able to play it with him. Diablo brings back memories for me. I remember playing the Spawn version on a burnable CD I used to bring to my grandparents' house. My parents always thought I was some crazy hacker because I could bring the game to their place without bringing the full version of the game. I took the compliments. It was the only one they ever gave me. Halo Combat Evolved. I was like 5 years old and absolutely obsessed with trucks and army men and here's my uncle and grandfather playing some game with aliens and guns but most importantly, the Warthog. It was the coolest looking thing ever and I begged them to let me play and they finally did. I think I spent 3-4 hours just driving around the second campaign mission. FFWD 20 years and every time I boot up the game, the soundtrack and voice acting and everything just takes me right back to 2001 and sometimes I tear up little. GTA San Andreas. I first played it when I was 16, 29 now, and have got 5 copies of it lol. I have the original disc PC version, the Steam version, Android and both PS4 versions. One island the PC port and one is the original PS2 port. I don't know how many times I have played it but every time I do, I always do it to the end and it feels great every time, most recently being the PS2 port. The soundtrack, the characters, the city, the variety, in my opinion has never been matched. What astounds me is how small the map is compared to GTA V. Yet how much bigger it feels. Capone and Pinball Dreams on the Amiga. My parents were in constant competition and it was awesome. King's Quest 2 because we got stuck killing the snake. Then I figured it out early one morning and got to loudly announce it to the household. Ports of call. My granddad had a full-blown diary of buy and sell prices for his cargo. Also, the CD version of Carmen Sandiego and Lexicross, which he loved and we enjoyed playing together. Interceptor, because I eventually managed to land on the carrier. Wings, Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe and Wings of Fury, because those were the games my best friend and I would huddle around the PC and play together. Duke Nukem 3D, Descent and Warcraft 2. Those were the game we first started playing networked with friends. Delta Force Land Warrior, COD 4, SWAT 4, Viet Cong, Battlefield, Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon, because when I moved interstate, those were the games that kept me connected to family and friends. Edit and Sparkle Unleashed, which I didn't play, but was the first game to make my wife kick me off the PlayStation so she could, in her words, game for a bit. Halo, Combat Evolved. That game raised the bar multiple times on what an FPS could be, what sci-fi could do in video games, and laid the foundation in some ways for AAA multiplayer games, though that came in on Halo 2. Animal Crossing, not the new game, the older ones. Sure, New Horizons has a lot of customization and stuff, but I played the game for the villagers. The villagers had such bright personalities and good conversations that it brought a tear to my eye when one of them left. I didn't have a lot of friends when I was a child, so playing Animal Crossing brought a smile to my face. It felt like I had a place to belong in. Shareware Doom. My dad used to play it, and I would stand next to him and watch. Also, later, Donkey Kong Country on my uncle's. I feel like my uncle never thought he was that cool, or something. IDK if it was B. See, he lived with my grandmother, his mom, but he had this area and a basement decked out with candles, guitars, amps, and of course, that's. But to childhood me, that room was otherworldly and magical. There was also a computer at my grandmother's house with Commander Keen, too. Another classic. Madden 10. Looking back, it was kinda cheeks compared to other Maddens, but it's one of the first games I had for my Wii as a kid. I remember playing it with my friends when they came over and screaming over that game, "Sorry Mama Mal." 10 years later I still live with one of those friends and we listened to the soundtrack for that game. I wasn't allowed to play a lot of video games growing up, but my grandma had a Nintendo 64 at her house, so when I would go over I would play those games, one of which was TMNT, Turtles in Time. Game Grumps played it recently and the amount of joy and nostalgia I got while watching was incredible. Virtual Cop 2. My first ever video game. Call of Duty 2, one of the first WW2/FPS shooter games I played and the first ever Call of Duty, made me grow an interest in WW2, Age of Empires. My first ever strategy game. Really enjoyed it because it was the first game that challenged my intellect in contrast to previous games. Command and Conquer, Red Alert 2, nostalgic for almost the same reasons as Age of Empires, plus the cool alternate reality, sci-fi Cold War theme. Road Rash and Need for Speed 2, my first racing games. Ratchet and Clank games. I haven't played any of the new ones, but the first few on PS2 are the shit. Also the names are FK and legendary, I mean going commando, size matters, up your arsenal, full frontal, and quest for booty. Too bad they didn't name the new one something overtly inappropriate. Dev PS3, Destiny 2 before this season, and the two previous ones, Minecraft, Mud, SnowRunner. That baby monkey riding on a pig game took it off the App Store for some stupid reason, and probably Pokemon Platinum. First, Pokemon Go doesn't count. Pokemon game I had. Tortank is where it is. Mario vs. Donkey Kong for the DS. I ended up getting this for my first console, which was a hand-me-down DS, and I loved the game. I remember it being simple but addicting gameplay and these really creative bosses, and I used to play it non-stop in the car on weekends going down to see my grandma and grandpa. Now and again I'll go back to the game and give it a bit of a play.